preventing bridge strikes, a bit of a maritime fright, and the uncertain future of humanoid robots. Pull up a chair and join us as the editors of DC Velocity discuss these stories, as well as news and supply chain trends on this week's Logistics Matters podcast. Hi, I'm Dave Maloney. I'm the Group Editorial Director at DC Velocity. Welcome. Logistics Matters is sponsored by Werner. In the automotive world, similar to many industries, speed is everything. Werner provides the engineered multimodal solutions to keep your business moving. From bulk hauls to nightly parts delivery, Werner's flexible fleet scales to meet the demands of any shop or retail store. Get reliable and safe precision from a supply chain partner who understands your unique needs. Become a customer today at choosewerner.com. As usual, our DC Velocity senior editors Ben Ames and Victoria Kickham will be along to provide their insights into the top stories of this week. But to begin today, bridges and trucks are two elements that don't mix well together. Many would be surprised to learn that an over-the-road truck strikes a bridge or an underpass every 36 minutes. Of course, these accidents risk lives besides disrupting traffic flow. But what can be done to prevent bridge strikes? I talked to Ronak Amin. He's the Global Product Marketing Lead for Fleet, Mobility, and Transport Solutions at Here Technologies about this very issue. Here's our conversation. Welcome, Ronak. It's good to have you with us here on Logistics Matters.
Thanks, David. Appreciate your interest in talking with us.
Our pleasure. For those not familiar with Here Technologies, can you briefly describe your company's role within the supply chain?
Yeah, so we are a location technology company. So we provide a lot of the tools, services, data software for fleets and the larger transport and logistics industries. We serve about 1,300 odd global customers across automotive, transport and logistics, enterprise software. And yeah, we've been in business for about 40 years, and we work with some of the leading, fleets that you're aware of.
Great, thank you. Today we're going to be talking about bridge strikes. We see these happen from time to time, but how common are bridge strikes?
Yeah, they're actually very common. 14,500 odd annually in the US. So it's quite a problem. Maybe not a problem that everyone recognizes when they hear bridge strikes. You wonder, um, how is such a thing still possible? Well, it's happening on a daily basis. There's about 220,000 bridges in the US, 7,000 tunnels. It doesn't include overpasses, underpasses, flyovers. So a lot of opportunity, nearly 40 happening per day. So it is quite a problem, and it's a shockingly common, daily, and very expensive problem at that.
That is a lot of bridge strikes and more than I would have thought, and more frequent than I would have thought as well. Beyond the possible injuries and delays that are caused by bridge strikes, are there other consequences from them?
Yeah, when you think about direct and indirect costs, on top of what you mentioned, bodily harm and pedestrian safety and all those very, very important things, cargo damage, vehicle damage, lost time, real big infrastructure challenges, right? Having to shut a major underpass down on a major highway in the United States, all of that impacts the supply chain, and so that's a major consideration. Then when you think about the indirect implications, you think about safety scores across fleets, you think about insurance costs skyrocketing, replacement vehicle considerations, all sorts of administrative constraints. There are examples out there of fleets, $1 million, per incident when it comes to infrastructure damage. States are actually having a budget line item for bridge repair or actually preventing bridge strikes. To put that in some numbers, 7 million in Texas, 4 million in Virginia. New York recently spent 19 million just to prevent bridge strikes. And so, these could happen at varying degrees. It could be a vehicle that's being rented, somebody's not familiar with the load height and makes a collision with the bridge, or it can be something far bigger, a hauler with an excavator, not really sure if they can get under that underpass, and then they end up making contact with it, right? And that could be a disastrous event. So, yeah, there's a lot of considerations, both indirect and direct.
Yeah, where I live here in Pittsburgh, I know that before they raised the height of the tunnels, we would have a truck stuck there every couple of months. Just they would have to
Mm,
deflate the tires in order to get the truck pulled out of there. You'd mentioned a couple of the reasons, but you would think that drivers, for the most part, would know the height of their trailers, and bridges are marked, or at least warning signs are sometimes given for lower bridges. Is it bad data there to not know the exact height of a bridge, or
Mm,
are drivers just not aware of how big they are?
yeah. Well, going back to what you just said, it's interesting because not to name any one of them specifically, but there are bridges across the world that have been hit dozens of times, upwards of hundreds of times. And so, yeah, then you start to think about what's causing this. And the first thing is just the human factor, the human element, right? Not seeing the posted signage saying the restricted height. Drivers often, they could either glance by them, they didn't comprehend what it was saying. So, in other words, like a poorly, um, just a poor sign, right? And what goes with that is sometimes they're weather beaten, you can't see them properly, things like that. But I think more importantly, on the human level, is that about half of truck drivers don't actually know what the vertical height of their load is. That's a survey that we found. So that's pretty telling right there. Then it comes down to the vehicle and the technology aspect of this, where it is possible that the vehicle is not alerting the driver that something is open, the body of the truck is raised, and then the driver just simply doesn't know. And then I would say maybe most importantly, from a technology perspective, is that drivers are sometimes using navigation that's designed for passenger vehicles and not commercial vehicles. And those systems are not designed to alert them about restrictions in the road, let alone truck speed limits and other things. They're just not designed for that. So using something that's dedicated for commercial vehicles that has that level of data underneath, that's really what's probably going to solve this ultimately in the long run.
You had mentioned about that commercial type of software. How accurate, though, is a lot of the measurements there within most commercial software packages available for
Mhm.
transportation management and routing?
Yeah, I would say the majority of them do not have the level of data that they need. So, for example, like what's in our database, we have about 350,000 restrictions logged. So that's 350,000 places in the country where we have the height of the bridge and the acceptable clearance. To put that in context, right, that's double the amount of gas stations in the United States. So it's a lot of information. And is it in transport management systems? Is it being dispatched out to drivers? Not effectively, right? And that's where this data comes in, is being able to provide that in a driver app, and making sure that's linked, to your point, back to the back end, right? What's happening on the transport management and the things. That's really where the value is for this.
Even if that information is relayed to the driver, you have to obviously have a driver who's willing to pay attention to it. So how important is driver training and emphasizing good practices and safety within that training?
Mhm. Yeah, it's really important. And doing that driver safety check, like before you take off on a job, is that always being done? I don't know, right? But that's part of the training. That's part of the regimen, is getting that logged and having that check in place. But ultimately, it's going to come down to giving them the right tools, right? Giving them a driver app that has the right amount of information, has the alerts for them, and not setting them up in a position where they have to, potentially enter a scenario in which they're not sure and there's not a posted sign.
Do most of those systems allow drivers to put in the height of their vehicle and the height of their load that will then provide a warning signal if their route is compromised in some way by a low bridge?
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty much a standard for any kind of truck driver app, where you would input the height, the cargo, any other specifications about the vehicle, or the what you're carrying behind it. And that should sync also to the back office. And then that works in seamless kind of nature. So yes, that is absolutely an important part of it, right? Is not just relying on the driver to have that manually logged, right, as part of their check, and then they're relying on the posted signage, but having the actual characteristics of the load of the truck in the software, in the truck, in the vehicle, and then having that alert the driver.
Right. And getting them to obviously use it. Are there other things we can do to prevent bridge strikes?
Yeah, there are other things on the technology end of it. So not just the warnings, not just the visibility, but being able to take it maybe a step further. So geofencing, height restricted infrastructure, leveraging truck specific data beyond just restrictions, right? Being able to bring your own private rules into the mix. So if a fleet knows that there is a particular route that's problematic, they can actually build that route themselves in the software and just make sure that the vehicle under no circumstances makes that left turn where they don't want that turn to be made. They want the vehicle to go around or use a different route, right? So those are some other things that you can think about more from a technology perspective.
We've been talking to Ronak Amin. He's the Global Product Marketing Lead for Fleet Mobility and Transportation Solutions at Here Technologies. Thank you again, Ronak, for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Now let's take a look at some of the other supply chain news from the week. And Ben, just when we thought things might be getting back to normal for maritime shipping, it seems now there's still a lot of uncertainty for these ocean shippers.
There's always something new for sure. Today, we're talking about the Suez Canal, which is, of course, the crucial path for container ships or any cargo ship at all, really, sailing but from Asia to Europe or to the east coast of North America and back again. Of course, it's the shortcut that lets them skip that long trip south all the way below Africa and instead cut straight along through the Mediterranean Sea, getting to the Atlantic much faster. Despite that benefit, in recent years, the Suez Canal and the Red Sea that feeds into it have been nearly empty of commercial traffic. And that's, of course, because of those violence and missiles from forces in Yemen, sort of a domino effect. They were targeting Israeli Western Hemisphere ships due to the bloodshed between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. However, about a month ago, CMA CGM, the big French container line, said that it would start sailing that route again until this week, when it reversed course and it started sending its ships back around again the long way, all the way around the Cape of Good Hope. According to maritime freight analysts, it's not just a change in pattern, but that kind of a flip-flop can really spook global shippers.
Yeah, it certainly could. And of course, that longer route does take more time, but it's also safer. So why would shippers care so much about this change?
It's a good question. So looking at the time involved here, Zenita, which is a firm that tracks container flows, they said it adds about a week to the trip to go the long way around. The full loop for a transit on CMA CGM service between China and Singapore and reaching 6 different European ports would decrease on a round trip from 105 days to 98 days. When the ships last month started transiting the Suez Canal again. Likewise, one-way transit time from Karachi, Pakistan to New York on a different CMA CGM route fell from about 40 days to 36 days each way after returning to the Suez Canal. But Zenita said, shippers can adjust to that extended sailing time if they know it's coming. But what they really struggle to cope with is the constant change of schedules. So in Zenita's words, they said unpredictability is toxic for supply chains. They said that while shippers want certainty over when containers arrive at port, even if that means longer transit times around the Cape of Good Hope. So ironically, Zenita said that CMA CGM's decision, although it might be safer, could ding them in terms of business in the short term.
Yeah, those changing times are always very difficult. Supply chains have learned to adapt and be agile to survive, but that lack of a sense of certainty still makes it very difficult for shippers to do their jobs to really plan properly.
That's exactly that's the most important variable, it seems.
Thank you, Ben.
Glad to.
And Victoria, humanoid robots are on the way. In fact, you wrote an article coming out in this month's issue about them, but also this week you also wrote a news story about some uncertainty about the market for these mechanical men.
That's right, Dave. Uncertainty is the word for it. That seems to be a theme here. New Gartner research released on Tuesday found that the hype around humanoids is outpacing the technology's readiness for large-scale deployment in logistics. And that means that we'll probably see a lot of pilot projects over the next few years, but it's going to be a while before these human-looking robots become commonplace on the warehouse floor. Specifically, Gartner said that over the next 2 years, less than 100 companies will progress human-robot proofs of concept beyond experimentation, with fewer than 20 companies going live in production for supply chain and manufacturing use cases. They also said that most production deployments of humanoid robots during this time will remain limited to really tightly controlled environments rather than in sort of dynamic and high-throughput supply chain operations.
So, Victoria, why do you think the technology is being held back in logistics and supply chain applications?
Well, based on this research, a few things. And I should point out that the research shows that humanoids hold promise for supply chain operations, but they just aren't ready for prime time yet, really. And the barriers include things like technological limitations. For example, they say the current models lack the dexterity, intelligence, and adaptability that's required for more complex, unstructured environments that are dealing with things like mixed SKU picking, trailer unloading, that sort of thing. Integration complexity is another issue. These robots, their compatibility with existing systems and workflows remains a challenge. High costs are another problem. Right now, humanoids cost a lot more than other types of robots that can do the same tasks, while also delivering lower throughput and uptime, so that's a big one. Energy constraints are another concern. Humanoids have limited battery life, and that restricts their operational time. The research found that polyfunctional robots are a better bet in the short term. These are robots that can perform multiple functions, but aren't restricted by the human form factor. So a robot on wheels with a telescopic arm that can kind of move boxes, pick cases, and scan inventory is one example. As you said, we have a feature story on humanoid robots coming up in our February issue, and it outlines some of the most recent advances in the technology, most of which are pilot projects that are aimed at solving these very challenges in logistics environments. So logistics remains a target for these developers, but it looks like they may just have a bit of a way to go.
Yeah, like anything, I guess it's just matching functionality to application, and the multifunction robots do seem to make a lot of sense, whereas the humanoids may not be best suited for most applications in logistics and supply chain.
Yeah, we have a big trade show coming up in the spring, MODEX. It'll be interesting to see what's on display there.
Yeah, it certainly will be. And we look forward to seeing that story also this month coming up. Yeah. Thank you, Victoria.
You're welcome.
We encourage listeners to go to dcvelocity.com for more on these and other supply chain stories. Also, check out the podcast notes section for some direct links to read more about the topics that we discussed today. And we'd like to thank Ronak Amin of Here Technologies for being our guest. We'll welcome your comments on this topic and our other stories. You can email us at podcast@agilebme.com. We also encourage you to subscribe to Logistics Matters at your favorite podcast platform. Our new episodes are uploaded on Fridays. And a reminder, Logistics Matters is sponsored by Werner. In the automotive world, similar to many industries, speed is everything. Werner provides the engineered multimodal solutions to keep your business moving. From bulk hauls to nightly parts delivery, Werner's flexible fleet scales to meet the demands of any shop or retail store. Get reliable and safe precision from a supply chain partner who understands your unique needs. Become a customer today at choosewerner.com. We'll be back again next week with another edition of Logistics Matters. Be sure to join us. Until then, have a great week.